I'll be talking about heritage and the Constitution. And I don't know how many of you have actually read the Constitution, because I read it only when I went to law school. But this one, for me, is very important. So even if you haven't read the whole thing, it's important that we should at least start with the preamble, because this preamble is our current prayer and our dream. So it's our collective prayer, where we invoke God, asking God to help us build a just and humane society. And included in that prayer is asking God to help us promote the common good and to conserve and develop our patrimony. So we realize that that idea of taking care of our patrimony is something important, and we put it in front in the Constitution. So the Constitution, being the highest law of the land and being the document that contains the hopes and prayers of the Filipinos, is very exuberant in its language. So here, so if it's in the beginning, you'll realize that it must be important, that idea of patrimony. And tonight we'll be discussing what does that mean? What do these words mean? And more importantly, what can we do to make sure that these words do not stay empty words, but actually become reality that we should be enjoying. So the right to natural heritage is found in this article of the Constitution. And it talks about protecting and advancing the right of people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. So because I have a kid in grade 4, and they have lessons in music, I realized that the Constitution uses the language of music. So what does it mean to live in accordance with the rhythm and harmony of nature? Because if this were a dance, would it be chugs, 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 or is it mutya ng Pasig? So, and then what happens if you add a highway on top of a river? Then what will be its new rhythm and harmony? And this provision was interpreted by the Supreme Court in the case of Oposa versus Factoran. So this case was brought by children, minors. They asked that timber license agreements be canceled and that new ones not be issued anymore. They claim that, if all the forests of the Philippines are cut, there's no chance for them and the future generations to survive. So in this case, the Supreme Court defined what nature is. So it says it's the created world in its entirety. And this is also the case that recognized the rights of future generation, intergenerational rights. So, and the Supreme Court, so defining it, what does it mean when you say you take care of nature? It means judicious disposition, utilization, management. And later, there are so many cases citing this. Of course, it talks about pollution and the duty of government to take care of the environment. So is this right found in the Bill of Rights? So the Bill of Rights, it's that part of the Constitution telling us what can be done or not to a human being and what protects us against the powers of government. So it's not listed there. How come it's not in the Bill of Rights, the right to a balanced and healthful ecology? Because the Supreme Court said it's more than that. It's deeper. It's part of being human. This is really the right to exist, the right to survive. And it's a different right altogether. And this is why eventually the Supreme Court came out with a set of rules and the concept of a writ of Kalikasan, where a person can bring action to enforce this right under the Constitution. So this provision has been used, saying that, trees should not be cut, for example, since it's contrary to the right to a balanced and healthful ecology. I think it's also been used to say that no reclamation projects should be done in Manila Bay. But let's see how that turns out, because the result of that one was not very favorable. But if you're interested, I think you should also read The Descent of Justice Leonen. So there have been many cases interpreting the right to natural heritage under the Constitution. So that part is natural heritage. So let's go to cultural heritage. So the right to cultural heritage is found in this article in the Constitution, where it talks about arts and letters enjoying the patronage of the state, which is old. This has been here since the 1935 Constitution. And the part where the state should conserve, promote, and popularize the nation's historical and cultural heritage, as well as artistic creations. A similar provision, I think, is found in the 1972 Constitution. And then it also talks about the country's artistic and historic wealth, which is part of the cultural treasure of the nation. So if you read these words, what do they mean? How have they been interpreted by the Supreme Court? The decisions of the Supreme Court form the law of the land, and they guide us in interpreting the Constitution. So what is cultural heritage? So two cases I think would be interesting to help us define what heritage is based on the Constitution and the decisions of the Supreme Court. Okay, so in Dean Jose Hoya versus PCGG, this happened shortly after, I guess, EDSA. So after the Marcoses fled, there were paintings by old masters found at the Metropolitan Museum, I think. And then there was also antique silverware found there. And the PCGG wanted to auction them off. Dean Jose Hoya led a group of concerned citizens asking that the auction be stopped, saying that those things, paintings by old masters and antiques, form part of the cultural heritage of the nation, and therefore should be kept here. They shouldn't be sold by the PCGG. However, this is what the Supreme Court said at that time. Well, it became moot and academic. By the time it was up for decision, the objects had been sold. But the court took note by the certification of the director of the National Museum that those Italian paintings and silverware were not in the list of cultural properties. So they were not declared. So not declared, not heritage, if we use the case of Hoya versus PCGG. But something else happened in the case of Manila Hotel. So the company that owned the shares of stock, and this company, the company that owned the land and the buildings of Manila Hotel was going to, the shares of stock were going to be sold. It was going to be sold to the highest bidder. The winning bidder was a Malaysian company. The losing bidder was a Filipino company who went to court and said that the shares of stock of that company that owned Manila Hotel could not go to foreigners, because that would mean that the provision on the Filipino First policy regarding patrimony of the Philippines would be violated, and said that, instead, even if that person was a losing bidder, Manila Hotel, the shares of stock of the company that owned Manila Hotel should go to that person. So here, that one was Italian paintings and silverware. This one, shares of stock of a company that owned Manila Hotel. Is this heritage? Shares of stock. Like, this is a sort of, maybe, I took this picture in 2017. Is this heritage? It's not even the building. It's the shares of stock. Is that patrimony of the Philippines? Well, apparently, yes, according to the court. And I was in law school at the time this was decided, and it really, raised concerns among lawyers. Like, does it make sense? So eventually, Manila Hotel at this time was not even a declared heritage site. And we're not even talking about the building here. It's just shares of stock. But the Supreme Court, citing a coffee table book by Beth De Romulo, said that, set aside the bid of the Malaysian winner, and I think awarded awarded it to the second highest bidder. And so that Manila Hotel is, I think, run by a Filipino company instead of that winner who was a Malaysian company. So here, shares of stock, and then that's the reasoning used by the Supreme Court. So it talked about a hotel where heads of state preferred to be housed. I think it also mentioned all the historic events that happened there, that important parties happened there. And I think it must have mentioned that Marcos loyalists also had a rally there. And then you have these types of arguments. How much of national pride will vanish if the nation's cultural heritage is entrusted to a foreign entity? How much? And then I think we should ask the same question later about our natural heritage. Okay? So, what is cultural heritage? So this is the definition under the heritage laws. It talks about the totality of cultural property preserved and developed through time and passed on to posterity. And maybe since there have been issues like, is what's important in Pasig River. Taj, Napi, and Dr. Z all show that it's the river. It's not even just the buildings by the river, it's the river, right? That we're considering as heritage as it shaped our civilization. And is that position supported by the Constitution? Is that position supported by law? If you take a look at the National Cultural Heritage Act, you will notice that cultural heritage is not just the man-made things. It includes natural sites. And that's really the way things are going. If you look at the rules on World Heritage Site, that also includes natural heritage. That's the reason why we have things called landscapes. Okay, so is Manila Bay part of our cultural heritage? I can't see your answers, but I'm curious. So chat, put your answers there. If you already know, then okay. If you were here, I'd give you a prize if you got the right answer. Is it? Okay. Yes, because it's been declared by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines from that part of Delpan Bridge up to CCP. And I think they extended this further to include the horizon. So I don't know how you measure a horizon because I think it keeps moving as you go nearer, right? So, so there we are. Is the Pasig River heritage that's protected under the Constitution? For me, that should be very obvious, given what we learned about it tonight. It shaped Manila, it shaped who we are, it gave rise to the name Tagalog. So what's going to happen if it no longer flows as a river in accordance with the rhythm and harmony of nature? What if we turn it into a highway? Is that going to be the identity of the Filipinos? So that's a question I would like to leave with you and to figure out on your own. So thank you very much.